on behalf of the city. Welcome to this Planning Commission meeting on March 28th. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our meetings, it's the responsibility of this commission to hold public hearings and make recommendations to the Independent City Council on matters relating to zoning and land use changes within the city. We also consider and make decisions on plats, special use permits.
Chairman, would you
Yes.
check to see if your microphone was on?
The light is on. It is.
It's green. It's lime green. We also consider and make decisions on plats, special use permits, and other issues, as well as changes in codes and policies that relate to city planning. Before we get started, I want to also remind everybody, as well as those of us up here, to make sure that our phones are on silent. Let me check mine. Yep. So that we are not disrupting the process. First, I want to swear anyone in who might think they want to speak before we get started. So if you will stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth before this commission? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you. Okay, so the procedure is first the city will give us their staff report on the items. Then the applicant can come forward and speak to the case, and then we will ask for any public concerns, issues, or statements. Okay, so first on let's do roll call. That's first.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Here.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Here.
Commissioner Wiley, H. Wiley,
Here.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Here.
Commissioner, I can't forget what his name is already.
Yes? Here.
Preston.
Oh,
Here.
Okay, and Chairman McLean.
here. He's online. He's up here somewhere.
I'm up here.
Okay, first thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. So did everybody have time to read over the minutes? Anybody have any changes or concerns?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
We're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes, the consent agenda has passed. Okay. The case to be continued is case 23-100-04, and that has been moved to the April 23rd meeting,
25th.
25th. I can't read my own writing, because it does say the 25th. Okay. Do we need to vote on that one? Or we just did? Okay. So the next, the public hearing, case 23-125-02, rezoning PUD 2710 South Westport Road. Staff, will you give a report, please?
Right before I give the report, could we ask if there's anyone representing Hoover here at the meeting? Yes, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
This, again, is case 23-125-02, Hoover rezoning. We're looking at the vicinity map here for the property in question. Just south of 27th Street on the northwest side of South Westport Road. And as you can see from the zoning map here, it's in an area that's overwhelmingly R6, single-family residential. I didn't go real far out with the picture, but the yellow goes quite a ways without any other zonings around it. And the comprehensive plan sees this as residential neighborhood as well. And this gives you a photographic overview of the property. So basically, what you have here, although the property line is a little off from that picture there and would be more located right along the edge of that northwest utility building. Basically, you've got two principal structures on this property. You have a house up front, and then behind you have another house, and then you've got two accessory buildings back there right now. So this shows the area within 185 feet that got notice of the requested rezoning for PUD, making this R6 and R6 PUD. And this is the PUD site plan. And again, this labels what I just explained. The existing asphalt driveway, the gravel driveway, accessory buildings, and the two principal buildings there. And I can't read my own because it's covering it up. Property history. Apparently, prior to the property being zoned R1 single-family residential in 1965, the property has had two single-family residences. The legal non-conforming use, which is having a second principal house on one lot, was maintained for many years, including where the current owner, Mr. Hoover, requested and received a letter of legal nonconformity to that effect. Subsequent to then, a tenant who occupied the unit without power for more than 6 months negated that legal nonconformity. Thus, the property now can only contain one single-family residence. So without this rezoning, that second residence would have to be removed. To occupy the rear residence requires a zoning designation allowing two residential structures. A use not allowed in an R12 because that's a duplex, which is two units in one building. And the only other possibility is R18 PUD, which is an apartment district, which would not be compatible with this single-family neighborhood. Either R18 or R30, either one. But the solution that seems best would be to maintain the single-family residential with the PUD element, so that it can be tailored to allow the property to have two single-family structures on one lot, but make sure that there are not any multifamily residences ever placed on that lot. Physical characteristics of the property. The property's depth is roughly twice its width. The principal house at the front of the lot sets approximately 80 feet off the right-of-way to the north of the existing asphalt driveway, which cuts across the length of the lot. The other house lies to the west of the front residence, about 45 feet. To the west, 2 garages lie to either side of the driveway at the northwest and southwest corners of the property. Most of the southern portion of the property, between the southwest garage and the roadway, is a large expanse of lawn. Characteristics of the neighborhood. The house sets in the neighborhood largely constructed in the 1950s. The house located immediately north of this property is a split level with a 2-car garage. Across the street is a large ranch with a side entry garage. To the south is a small house. All these surrounding residences sit on rather large lots, so there's some separation there. Analysis. As far as the request's consistency with the strategic plan of Independence, an objective of the strategic plan is to build new housing units to fill a market need. Although this application does not result in more housing units, it does preserve the second unit that's already there on that lot. A comprehensive plan, the guiding land use principles. On this site, along with the other properties in the neighborhood, which is designated a residential neighborhood by the city's comprehensive plan, features a variety of single-family houses, as I said, that were of different sizes, although the plan designation does allow zonings that would allow duplexes and multifamily dwellings. As far as any historic archaeological sites on the property, there are no apparent that we are aware of. Of course, all the needed public utilities are already there and are used and are along the right-of-way. The City of Independence does not have any capital improvements projects planned for Westport Road. Excuse me. Zoning. As noted previously, the site has had singles-family zoning since at least 1965. Permitted R6 uses include single-family homes, churches, schools, home-based daycare centers, government buildings, parks, cemeteries, and home gardens, community gardens, field crops. Being a PUD, there will be a flexibility allowed in the number of residences, that being 2. Parking and driving surface, they're not changing the existing driveway that's there now. So this is looking northwest. You can see the lawn area there on the south side of that drive, the house that's up front close to Blue Ridge, or not Blue Ridge, Westport Road. This is looking southwest down Westport Road. So to the right is the neighbors immediately to the south. And there's a better picture of that, actually. And then this is straight across the street, 27 Terrace intersecting in a T with Westport Road. And this is the big ranch that's right across the street. And then this is looking back up Westport Road, back toward 23rd Street. And this is the south lawn area there. So you can see there on the right, the main house, then the other house behind it, as well as the accessory buildings. And it's a little bit close up on those. So staff recommends approval of this rezoning request with the following conditions. be included with the preliminary development plan consisting of the attached PUD site plan. The number of dwelling units in the existing buildings is limited to the 2 existing single-family units.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah,
Hey, Brian, did you say R6 could have churches or not? So R6 can have churches, R6 PUD can have churches?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because I looked that up on Google Maps. That front house, they have it registered as a church. I didn't know.
Yeah.
if that- So I just wanted to make sure that was
Yeah,
okay.
this PUD wouldn't eliminate any uses allowed in an R6. It just allows that narrow allowance for 2 single-family dwellings.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions of staff before we have the applicant come forward? Okay, will the applicant come forward, please? And state your full name and your address, please.
Kelly Duckworth, for Robert and Rosemary Hoover. I'm their daughter. 3365 Blue Ridge Boulevard, Independence, Missouri, 64052.
Thank you. Go ahead and tell us anything you think we should know about this case, or?
Just basically what he said. We're not changing anything. We'll stay exactly like it is. We don't plan to build anything. We are just getting it to what it had been grandfathered, may not be the right word, but grandfathered to be before.
Okay, so basically, as I understand it, the request is to zone it to what it is actually being used for right now. Is
Or
2
how it was
separate
built
units.
back in the 50s
Yeah.
or 40s. So, yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Oh.
My only question,
Okay.
he just mentioned other buildings on the property. Can you tell me what those are?
There's a couple of different properties there. But I think on that building, it's just the 2 residents and maybe a small outbuilding. Is that correct?
This one?
I honestly don't know where all the lines are.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's a barn, but I think it's the parcel next door, actually. But it has access from that drive.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak for this case? Come on up, and if you'll, for, okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this case? Yes. If you will come up and state your name and address for us, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, the name is Wes Epperson. I'm the organizer of the Independence 4th District Community Improvements Committee. We've been meeting for almost a year. We'll start back April the 27th. I live at 3600 Poplar Avenue, which is fairly close, probably within a mile of this property. And I've looked at several of the properties around our area, Southwest Independence, that's owned by the Hoovers. And most of them leave a lot to be desired. And my problem is the city recommending approval when I understand the Hoover properties have several code violations in the past and now. And these 2 properties, I drove by there on my way. 2710 is in disrepair. The fence is shoddy. The driveway's got a big, huge hole in it. It's a big mud puddle right in the front at Westport Road. There's several neighbors around here, around that area, that are trying to keep their properties up, that are trying to stop the blight that's going on in Southwest Independence. We have too many landlords that do not keep their properties up to code. You can drive down South Oxford. There's a Hoover property there. That whole block is blighted. I know the people, they belong to our committee. They have a very nice brick ranch house right at Oxford and Blue Ridge. And they're just sick about what's happened to their neighborhood and what's happened to their property value. You go right next door, 2708 on the north side. That's a Hoover property. It's shoddy looking. I don't see how we can approve things until we bring them up to code. We've got other properties, 3880 Blue Ridge. We've had a brush pile sitting in the front of that house for a year, right across from Life Connection Church.
Sir, we have to stick to this case, if possible.
Okay, all right, I'm sticking to the case. Southwest Independence, we're fighting the blight the best we can. This property is part of that blight, and I'd ask you to reject this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this case? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public portion of this.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
would you ask the Ms. Kelly, who's representing the applicant, to come back and respond to the comments of this person, of Mr. West?
So can I reopen it to the public?
And if she has any comments about its statements of conditions of the property and intent and future use and remedy?
We're checking, just a minute.
Yes, the public hearing can be reopened.
Okay. I'm reopening the public hearing on address 2710 Southwest Port Road, case number 23-12502. Will you come on up, applicant?
I do not know of any violations on 2710 Westport. I mean, not currently, and not that I've seen recently. We've got really good tenants in the front house, and they've taken really good care of it. So I'm not sure.
Was this not brought up because of code violations or something on the rear house? Brian, wasn't that what your report said?
The code violation is actually a zoning code violation. I don't think it was a property code
Oh,
violation.
but it came up because of.
Because it was lost its legal nonconformity, so they had they have a ticket
Okay.
for
Yeah,
the
basically.
occupation of a house that has lost its legal nonconformity.
Okay, that cleared it. Thank you.
Yeah, two separate things. Any other questions of the applicant?
A question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm still a bit concerned about the opposition to the application and the loss of non-conforming status because a tenant lived in the property for 6 months without utility. That's an indicator of something's wrong.
When did that happen, though?
Again,
Long time ago.
I'd like the applicant representative to speak to the loss and why was there a tenant there for 6 months with no utilities? I mean, it is cause for concern.
All right, okay. During COVID in the last 3 years, it's been very difficult to evict. Even though we know there's a problem there, they weren't even having eviction court. So we had to follow those rules. We had to wait until they reopened, and there wasn't much we could do.
I hear you.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like this is probably more a question for city, like maybe we could clear this up a little bit, because for us, this is just kind of another cleanup in an area that was kind of not noticed until something was now non-conforming. So now we're just making it right, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you want to say it better than I did? Like a little cleaner and a little more professional?
I mean, we have a situation where we had for decades 2 residences on the lot before our current zoning was in place that only allowed 1 residence per lot, and that was fine as long as it remained legally occupied. But when that person on the rear property was, providing their power by generator instead of from the public utility, they weren't. It wasn't a legal lease anymore, and so it lost the legal nonconformity of the use.
So by doing this, does this enable the city to be tighter on the residential codes that are in place, like no machinery, no heavy machinery on the lot, nobody, things like that? Does that help?
I mean, the same codes that applied on any other
Single resident?
single-family resident apply to this. The same apply to the properties across the street, down the street, whatever. The only thing this PUD does is create this narrow little allowance for 2 houses instead of 1 in an R6.
But again, makes absolutely sure it could never be an R12 or an R18 or anything else, right?
Because we don't want a multifamily situation within this single-family community.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, come on up.
Yeah. Wes Epperson.
Thank you.
I went to Rockwood Baptist Church for years, right down Westport Road. And this was back when Westport Road was a very scenic, nice area of Independence. I knew the man that lived at 2710. He was a deacon in our church. It was a beautiful house, well taken care of. It's not now. It's for people that are trying to better their property in this area on Westport Road in this neighborhood. This property doesn't meet up, and so that's my comment. I was just by there. I've looked at the house. It's run down. This property's run down, and you can fix the code so they can put another run-down house in behind it and rent it. It's a problem. The city needs to take a closer look at these properties. The blight is spreading, and we're fighting it. And I hope you turn this down and send a message to this property owner that they need to fix this property. Thank you.
So I think it would, I don't know if I can help by clarifying this or not, but number one, we can't help with code violations. But this rezoning it's just not going to change anything, but what it does is protects that property. You can't add any more houses to it. You can only do 2. So that will at least protect the integrity of that. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Any other comments or responses before I close the public hearing? Billy, are you good if I close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I'm good with the closing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, any discussion, questions for city? Or?
Brian, if we give approval to this, do they have to have the driveway paved the rest of the way to the second house, or since it's gravel? I mean, that came up last week or last time.
I was
Because you're saying.
Is it, I was thinking it was already paved all the
Well,
way
some of
back.
it's
I was thinking it was already paved all the
Well,
way
some of
back.
it's paved, not all of it. You got gravel back there, that's why.
Oh, it doesn't go quite to it, does it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not, according to your diagram, it says it's got gravel.
Well, it says existing asphalt and concrete driveway, so I think that whole thing is pavement. The gravel part's in front of the garage.
In front of the garage,
Mhm.
okay, but would they have to asphalt that if they?
I mean, they're not doing any construction.
Well,
There's no
I
building
remember when we had
permit.
last week, we had to make sure they put in a driveway. Wasn't that one of the restrictions?
Yeah, they had no parking.
Or is that just because it's a dangerous building? I don't know.
And I can't even remember yesterday.
That's the one that they went from C2 to R2. And then they had gravel in the back, had to take gravel, and then they had to put an asphalt driveway. But I know they had to get permit because it was a dangerous building, so I didn't know.
So I guess the previous case you were talking about, they actually added the building?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know that if that's the reason, it's because they got a permit, since they went and got a permit.
Yeah,
they
there's no
had-
building permits involved in this, so there's no inspections being done, at least as part of the building process.
Okay,
There is-
well, okay, so the
as far
only,
as
only thing you're
codes
saying,
issues.
the only thing you're saying is that they got to, put new numbers on it? Can't be A and B, or is it got to have regular numbers?
I mean, I don't think I don't like the addressing system the way it is, but I mean, the post office delivers it that way now. I don't
Okay, so
see
that-
the need for changing
Okay.
how you address the property.
Okay.
Commissioners?
I have a question for, just a point of clarification. The house, since it was non-conforming and had somebody not using utilities, eventually they were evicted, I'm just assuming. So we will be, to your point with our strategic plan, adding another residence that currently does not have somebody able to live in it, that by rezoning, they would be able to live in it.
Yes.
Okay, so the condition of it is up to the choice of a renter wanting to live there.
I mean,
This is not that conversation about fixing up two houses to make them livable. They're
Right.
livable.
We have a division that does rental ready
And if there's a
does-
code violation, it'll be taken care of.
Yeah, and they'll be denied the
Right,
landlord license, yeah.
okay.
For that.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
This is a good question. Any other comments, questions? Or I take a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Preston?
and let me just get my data back up again. In the matter of the subject case, I move for approval with the cited stipulations as in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I second.
We're ready for a vote. It was H. Wiley, a second, if you didn't get that.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
No.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes,
Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 23-125-02, rezoning -PUD at 2710 South Westport Road has been approved. Yes, it does. This goes to city council, right? Yeah. And that's where the conversation will make more sense. Okay. Next case is case number 23-125-03, a rezoning PUD at 10101 East Kentucky Road. Request by Christopher Carter to rezone this property from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to R30 PUD High Density Residential Planned Unit Development and approve a preliminary development plan. Staff, will you give us a report?
Okay, well, this is actually a combined report since the buildings are very close together on two adjoining lots. I'm just doing one presentation for both, but the votes will be required separately. Okay, as you can see, this property is at the southeast corner of Kentucky and Cedar, shown in the little red circle there. This is the aerial photograph that shows the two properties next to each other in the red box. As you can see, it's the southeast corner of this intersection. This is the zoning map. Currently, the area is in pink there. The box should actually be around both properties. They're both zone C1 at this time. There's property to the south is on R12, and then there's a property to the east that is on R6. There's also a property basically to the north that's on O1 office. Comprehensive plan recommends residential neighborhood uses for this entire area. This is an older area of the city. Lots were platted many years ago, and the houses are kind of generally smaller, older homes. Okay, the 1965 zoning map shows this small neighborhood commercial area at this intersection of Kentucky, Cedar, and Huddig Avenues. Basically, it is along Kentucky between Cedar and Huddig. Go back here. This doesn't really completely show it all the way, but it's all that pink area there. With few exceptions, well, this commercial node encompasses about 25 lots, zone C1. With few exceptions, most of the properties are now in residential use, even those originally constructed for commercial use. Over the past decade or so, 3 of the lots have been rezoned, 2 to residential and 1 to office, as we mentioned before. This actual building there at 10101 was actually a little corner grocery store for this little neighborhood, and later I understand it was a bait shop. Okay, the proposals are for the 10101 East Kentucky. There are no changes planned for the property itself. They just want to retain the current 3 living units in the building. So it is R30 PUD. And the 10103, again, no changes are planned to the property. They just want to retain the use of the property as a single-family house. Excuse me. 10101 East Kentucky is it's a small property. Kind of get to it here. It's a small property. It's only 50 feet wide by 100 feet deep. It's 5,000 square feet in size and contains one single-family. I'm sorry, I got those flipped there. The 10101 is about 35 feet wide and 100 feet deep. It's a 2-story building, contains about 1,900 square feet, and was divided into 3 dwelling units maybe 40 years ago. The lower level features 2 units. The upper level contains a single unit accessed by the exterior stairway, as you can see in this photograph here, on the building's eastern side. It's located close to the west property line of Cedar, just south of the right-of-way line of Kentucky, and we're on Kentucky looking to the southwest here. The portions of the lot not contained by building are on its south and east side, which are yard area on the south and parking area on the east. The 10103 property, it's a single-family dwelling on a lot that's only 50 feet wide and 100 feet deep, which is 5,000 square feet. And the house is a 2-bedroom structure containing about 900 square feet above a crawl space, no basement. It's light blue wood frame structure featuring a covered front porch. Behind the house is an open yard area. Between this house and the Kentucky, the other property at 10101 is basically just asphalt parking. As you can see, the parking there on the side. This area of the this area of Northwest Independence consists of mostly older, generally smaller homes on average to small side lots constructed in the middle of the last century, except for this commercial node, which these properties are part of. The predominant zoning in the vicinity is R12, two-family dwelling. As I mentioned before, even though there's a C1 node here at the Kentucky-Huddy crossroads, most of the commercial buildings have been converted into residential use. As I go through these, you can see. Again, this is the front of the building as it faces Kentucky. This is the east side of the building. There's the parking lot between this property and the single-family home to the left. This is the front of the building at 10101. You see, it appears to be like an old grocery store or it's a corner store with a living unit above it, and it's pretty close to the road. This is the west side of the property. Can't see it from this, but I believe the building is maybe 2 or 3 feet from the right-of-way line of Cedar. Hard to say. This is the back or the rear of the building. The property goes just south of that big tree there. It's just south of that. And we'll go through the neighborhood here. This is the property that's immediately south of the site, single-family home. I think it's a single-family. It may be a duplex. And then there's another single-family home south of that. This is houses to the southwest across Cedar Avenue. And this is another commercial building that was converted into residential a number of years ago. Here we're looking west down Kentucky Road. This is the grade school that's on the northwest corner of Cedar and Kentucky. This is an apartment building on the northeast corner. Not sure if this was a commercial building at one time. A good chance it was. Don't know the history of it. Here we're looking at another property to the northeast of the site, single-family home, and then looking east up Kentucky Road. And then this is a small house that's immediately east of the single-family home. Okay, the rezoning of this property for its residential use will help stabilize its neighborhood, an objective of the plan. The plan also, of the strategic plan. Comprehensive plan recommends that the existing residential areas be preserved and enhanced over time. The rezoning for R6 will follow that objective. And then, as I mentioned, the current C1 zoning allows for offices, restaurants, personal services, small retail uses, but not single-family homes. The R6 allows for one single-family home per lot, with residential uses allowed limited to home-based daycare, government offices, churches, schools, utilities, cemeteries, and so forth. R30 PUD uses include apartments, multi-unit houses, townhomes, and non-residential uses of churches, schools, government buildings, so forth. Special use permit is in R30 PUD is required for homeless shelters, substance abuse treatment homes, and domestic violence shelters. All utilities are in place and connected, as you can imagine, on property so old, and there's no capital improvements planned for the site. Staff does recommend approval of the 10103 East Kentucky Road property, which is a single-family home. Go back here. Whoops. This to R6, single-family residential. And then staff recommends approval of this property at 10101 to R30 PUD with the following conditions. And the preliminary development plan consists of photographs of the site as you have seen. First, the number of the dwelling units in the building is limited to 3 units. Install a 6-foot privacy fence along the south, which is the rear property line, which would be roughly where that tree is. 3, the city council approves the 30% density increase to allow the building to retain 3 units. 4, if required by the fire department, the dumpster must be relocated to a safer site. The issue is if there's a dumpster fire, it's too close to the building and could catch the building on fire. 5, the owners must obtain and maintain the property city, business, and landlord licenses. And 6, before any business or landlord license are approved, however, the 2 properties must be replatted to shift the common lot line east 5 to 10 feet to provide more area for the 10101 property and necessary parking for the structure. The distance for the line relocation will depend on the distance between the 2 structures on the lots. We're not really sure what that is exactly, so we'd have to work with the applicant on that.
Okay, is that it? Thank you. Okay, commissioners, any questions of staff?
Reason why we're going 30 is because of 3 apartments, that's why?
Well, 3 apartments combined with the size of the lot.
It's the size.
This lot is just so small, we have to do the density bonus, so to speak, just to keep the 3 units. If we didn't have the density bonus, you would have to change it back to 2 units.
So then you go to R16?
Well, you'd still need the R30 for just 2 units.
Oh.
Because the lots is so small again.
Still too small?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the density bonuses, it barely squeezes in 3 units.
And city council
They have the authority to do that.
Okay.
And it's listed as a condition
Yeah,
in
I saw
the,
that, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions before I bring the applicant up? Will the applicant come forward? Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
Okay, sorry. State your name and your address, please.
Christopher Carter, 18412 West 114th Street, Olathe, Kansas, 66061.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter, could you get a little closer to the microphone there?
Absolutely.
What can you tell us?
Well, we purchased these properties back in November. When we purchased them, we were aware that they were, non-conforming use, continuously occupied buildings used for residential purposes, living purposes. Really what we want to do is just bring them up to being used properly for the area they're zoned in. That's it. Also, I'll be very honest. One of our concerns is if we happen to have a total loss of, really we're just mainly concerned about the 10101 building. If we had a total loss of that building, as it's zoned right now, we could not build it back to a residential use 3-unit building. In fact, I don't even think we could build it back to a residential use 2-unit building. So that's a concern for us as well. We do have, I will tell you, all the units are, we had to make some improvements to the units to make them rent ready and ready for tenants. We did that to 2 of the units in the triplex, and then the single-family home needed some help too. So we brought it up to standard for being rented. They're all the units are occupied right now, currently. So.
Okay.
Sir, is there any problems with the staff recommendations? You seeing problems with doing those?
No, not at all. And I had reviewed those before coming in here, and no, we're perfectly fine with all of them. In fact, the replatting it needs to be done, and yeah.
Do you have, for the dumpster, you have someplace in mind to put it, or?
I could actually go move it tomorrow, and I'm not being sarcastic in that. It's just a small one with wheels. So, or I'll have these properties are professionally managed by our property manager also. If you can see where that one vehicle is parked there to the left of it. Really easy to move that, and I don't know what the code is, how far that has to be away from the building, but yeah, I agree that's not an ideal place for it. So I think what we'd be looking to do would be to put it right over there, probably to the left of where that black or dark colored car is.
Staff, do you know, does he have to put an enclosure around that?
Well, normally, if this was a new project, yes, but considering the size of the property, I'm not sure where exactly you'd put it that wouldn't be a hazard to,
Well, I
to
wonder if
the
it'd be
parking.
better off if they went from a dumpster to 3 individual cans.
Yeah, to go to rollouts, yeah, they could, that's a.
And we had actually
certainly
considered that
upland.
before ordering the dumpster too. This is what the tenant had in the past and liked, so, yeah, that's yeah, absolutely a possibility.
Well, I didn't know if you have any problems with illegal dumping, because you have a dumpster sitting out there, or is it locked up?
I will say not yet.
Not yet, okay.
We have not.
I have no other.
Thank you. Any commissioners, any other questions of the applicant? I have a question, but I don't know how to frame it, so I'll just wait. Okay, I think that's fine. You can sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for this case? Is there anyone here to speak against this case? Hearing none. We're going to close the public portion of this case. Commissioners, any discussion, questions of staff?
Well, I'd like the residential one. I'm a little leery on the other one because it is such a small lot. I mean, I don't know if it should just go back to, I know it was built for something else way back in, but I mean, he's already converted it, and I guess it's passed codes or fire inspection yet, or do we know? Since he said he already remodeled it, so I didn't know.
I don't know about passing any inspections or permits being issued. Did you do any work to this? Can you come up to the podium again?
So the work that was done to 10101, the triplex, was strictly cosmetic interior work. We didn't reconfigure any of the units that were downstairs. The front unit is a small studio. The back unit is a one bedroom, and the unit upstairs is a two bedroom. So we didn't change anything structurally or make any capital expenditures on the property. We just did cosmetic update inside.
Okay, and you have passed, I'm probably asking, have you got your license and it's passed independent inspections? Or-
It has not been inspected since we've been the owner, since November. We have
Okay.
not had an inspection done yet on it. I'm sure that's forthcoming.
Right, 'cause I think you have, 2 years to get that done right now?
I don't know, you don't have a rental, you haven't gone through the rental ready program yet and had signed up for being a landlord or anything like that.
No, we still need to do that.
So that
Okay.
would be part of
Okay,
that.
that answered my question there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I
you.
do know when we purchased it, we did research it, and the title company did as well. There were no open code violations at the time or anything like that.
Okay.
Thank you. So my question is, for the highest and best good of the neighborhood, and I know that we're doing this to sustain sustainability, I mean, to not make the neighborhood worse, but doesn't just having an R30 kind of keep that trend going rather than moving it all to R6? I know that it is what it is, and we have 3 buildings, and I feel bad about that, but
Well, this was debated at its staff level somewhat. It was talked about recommending like an R18 or something that would allow for 2 units in the building. I assume all the discussions is about this building and not the O3 address.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have specified, I'm sorry.
That's a good question. Like I said, we talked about going down to a lower district that would allow for 2 units. That would mean that he would have to reconfigure the lower level to where it would just be 2 units. I don't know. We just ended up with this. I don't know that I have really an easy answer for that. I know that if it did burn to the ground, building back a building there with 3 units in it wouldn't be the best thing for sure, because it's just too small of a lot.
Yeah, it's a tiny lot. And
I don't
that's-
know if the counselor would weigh in on an issue about downzoning this to like an R18, which would allow for 2 units, but allow him to keep the 3 units in the building now. But if for some reason a unit was lost or the building was partially or fully damaged, they could only have 2 units in it.
That was my question. I just couldn't figure out how to ask it.
That was to you.
So,
Okay.
is it possible to downzone it to R18 so that, but he'd be grandfathered in at having 3 units under the R30? But if something happened, anybody who, or if it resold, if we went downzoned it to R18, then somebody getting that property, it could only have 2 units. That was very complicated. I think Stuart said it better.
Well, I think that implicates a couple of different questions.
Okay.
Is that question before the commission with the present application?
No?
Which, yeah. So, and the reason I get to that is, could this be reshaped right now as that? No. That's not what it's noticed up for. The applicant would have to come back and seek that. To answer that question, I just could not answer that off the top of my head
Okay.
without looking into the code. But that is complicated.
It is complicated. I was trying to look towards the future, but
Madam Chair.
yes.
For immediate, yeah, I just don't see that for the
There's any way
immediate
to do it.
application, no way to do it now,
Okay.
because it has been noticed for that.
Good point. Forgot about that.
So
Go ahead.
maybe the attorney or staff, I'm not sure who, going back to what you just said, this applicant is asking for it to be zoned correctly to fit the 3 units.
Correct.
The lot is so small that a special clearance by the city council,
It's basically a density
Has-
bonus.
but it has to be received
It has to be-
regardless of what we decide tonight. It has to also get approval.
It's one of the conditions of approval
Okay.
for by the council.
Okay, so it's always been a 3-unit? It's been rented as a 3-unit? Have we had any problems out there?
I don't know that we've had any code violations on this property, but, I've only been here a certain time period, and he's only on the property a certain time period. And my experience with these is when they change hands, it always seems to be that nobody knows anything about it.
So basically, switching it to an R30 is better than leaving it at commercial.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of his big concern is if it was damaged or destroyed, then his mortgage company would be out.
Yeah.
Mortgage company's not going to back up a property that's not able to be reconstructed to pay the mortgage on the property. I think that was a big issue with him.
Yeah.
Now, from, like, one of the things that we discussed at a staff level was just to maintain the housing stock in the city as it was. As much as this building is what it is it better or worse? Now, if it did burn down, he would have to come back through with a preliminary development plan to rebuild something on the lot. And I think at that time, we'd have to look at it and say, well, hey, you had your other property, you had 3 units on this little lot. We can't make that work now, so you'd have to go with something smaller. Maybe a 2-story with, what's 2,500 or 1,000 on the lower level and 1,000 above it, I don't know. But it would, it wouldn't look like this, I don't think.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
it appears we've got a good investor who's made improvements on the property, who's also agreed with the stipulations, the 6 sites by staff's recommendation. It preserves the number of units available. I think this is almost a bit of a no-brainer.
are you making a motion to approve?
And with that comment, then, in the matter of case number 23 dash, I'm having my technology challenge. In the matter of the subject case, I move for approval as presented with the stipulations as cited in the staff's report.
So it's a motion to approve case number 23-125-03 with recommendations, correct?
Correct.
Is
I'll
it-
second that.
Thank you. And we're ready for a vote?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. I need a motion for,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I move that we approve case 23-100-08, rezoning of 10103 East Kentucky Road from C1 to R6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner H. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner L. Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Chairman McLean.
Yes. Case number 23-100-08 has been approved. So is case 23-125-03. I think I forgot to say that. Okay, roundtable. Next meeting is April 11 at 6 p.m., same place. Is there anything else for the greater good we need to know?
Is that when we're gonna start getting our, short-term
terms, yeah.
rentals?
There's either 3 or 4 on that meeting, I'm not sure which.
Oh, I thought you said
At least
34
3.
for a minute.
3 or 4. Yeah.
I heard 34. so-
Eventually, we'll get to that 340, but number just keeps going up.
Oh, great, bring pizza. Okay, with that, we are adjourned at 7:04 PM.